All right. Okay. The next lesson about the Persian Wars that we're going to be getting into. In the last lesson, we were talking about, well, what's up on the PowerPoint at the moment. The Ionian revolt that just, gets crushed. And then the vengeance that Darius has, or King Darius, so the Persian Empire has towards Athens and, Eritrea as well. So now we're going to be talking about what happens in, you could say, the first episode of the Persian Wars. Basically, it surrounds a battle called the Battle of Marathon. So, just moving on here. Basically, what happens is this. Darius, he's got a big empire. It's massive. He doesn't feel like he has the time to personally go over there and punish the Athenians and the Eritreans, and just the Greeks for defying him and helping out that revolt. So he sends his cousin, a guy named Mardonius, a pretty accomplished general. He should be able to get the job done, basically. And he sends him over with, numbers vary. No one really knows. We have to base everything off of a Greek historian named Herodotus, and he liked to exaggerate a little bit. Let's put it that way. But man, he is fun to read if you ever get the chance. Well, I should say you should take the chance. Fun guy to read, Herodotus. So, anyways, Mardonius basically sails across the Aegean Sea, but he doesn't sail across the Aegean Sea. This isn't just a go take out Athens. Let's get something out of this. Let's subjugate people along the way. Let's add them into the Persian Empire. Let's get some tribute and things like that. Let's make this worth our while type stuff. So he doesn't go from, say, like over here, if you're seeing my cursor right there, over to Athens like that. He doesn't go like that. He goes up and around and down. Okay, this is significant because, that takes time. And Athens knows they're coming, so they're able to prepare. And by the way, he doesn't just have his army going up and around. You got that whole Hellespont thing to get across we've talked about before, that narrow neck of water. And one of the things you definitely need as you're marching army across is supplies. So he has actually a quite large fleet accompanying him. So you have an army, I forgot to go over the numbers. An army that, depending on who you go through, could be as low as maybe 25,000. Herodotus tells us more. General consensus I've seen of historians, it was probably something around 35,000, 45,000, which is a massive, massive army. It should easily get the job done. And the reason why historians think that that's about the biggest it can be is for the fleet size that he has accompanying him, that's about how much food they could transport comfortably and keep that army going. Now, it could be different, but we're just going to go with this idea that they had about 45,000 troops, just as we go through this. It could have been 25,000. Either way, it doesn't matter. The end result is still the end result when we get to the end of this. So again, just sticking with the 35 to 45,000 thing. But again, Mardonius goes up and around. He doesn't really get much pushback. Like the city-states, the Greek city-states up here, just like, okay, just don't do anything to us. We'll do what you want. Please don't kill us. But when he gets down right here to the island of Euboea, to the city-state of Eritrea, those are the guys that sent over troops to help out the Ionian revolt. So he crushes them in the idea that he wipes them out. The survivors make it to Athens with all these tales of like, woe is us, we're all doomed type thing. You're all going to die because we just all died. And it scares the heck out of the Athenians. So Athens, they were doing this beforehand too, by the way, but man, Herod, the people of Eritrea coming down saying, you guys are so screwed, doesn't help out. They go around to all the city-states around them. Now, mind you, remember, no one likes anybody in ancient Greece. There's a lot of contention. So they go around and saying, hey, are you willing to help us out? The best army in the world is coming to destroy us. Can you help defend us? Try using that argument. One of the things that, they go to Thebes. By the way, Thebes absolutely detests Athens. But they still go there to ask for help, and Thebes just laughs at them and basically is like, well, great, we'll set up our camp chairs and watch you guys go down. They're just kind of giddy about the fact that Athens is about to get destroyed. They go to a bunch of other city-states like Corinth and things like that, and everybody basically says, this is your fault. You brought this on yourself type thing. This doesn't have to do with us. We'll be fine. They're not coming after us. They even go down to Sparta, and they actually use a different strategy, you could say, for trying to convince the Spartans to join them. And the strategy was this. Hey, the best army in the world is coming to attack us. You guys are the best army in Greece. Now, wouldn't you want to test your mettle against that to see if that's really true, that you are the best? And that actually argument works on the Spartans. Now, it doesn't mean they come up. We just, in one of the former lessons we talked about how, just die hard and awesome the Spartans are as far as a military state goes. But this even, they chicken out. Let's put it that way. They basically chicken out. What the Spartans reply is, yes, we will come help you out. We'll test our mettle. But we can't get there for 2 weeks. I can't remember what the whole time zone is here. I'm kind of making that part up. But we can't get there for 2 weeks. And the Athenians are like, well, they're going to get there before then. We need you now. And they're like, yeah, well, we have to do this festival thing. We need to honor the god Ares and make sure everything's good with the gods first, and then we'll send up some help. And the Athenians, they basically get the idea is you guys are you're coming up with excuses on not to come up. And that's basically what happens. Sparta basically makes up an excuse to say, yes, they're coming, but they're not really coming. So Athens basically just has a few of the tiny city-states around them, most notably a city-state and people called Plataeans that join up with them. And they get their combined army together. It was roughly 10,000 men. And they march up to where they know the Persians are going to land at a place called Marathon. So when you see it there on the map. Now, I guess I should have had that up when I was talking about Sparta chickens out. So we get to the Battle of Marathon. And this, I'm going to try to explain simply. I'm not going to get into the really in-depth idea and just all the arguments the Athenian generals had. Now I'm getting into it, but they would vote on, do we take them on, do we not take them on? And they actually, I'm getting into this, and I thought I wouldn't, but they actually have this vote where, half the Athenian generals are like, let's not take them on here. And half of them are like, we got to take them on here. And all the entire time, the Persians are unloading their troops. They don't just unload 35,000 guys in a day. They're in the process of getting their army off. And the Athenians are like, should we attack? Should we not attack? Should we make peace? Should we just say, please don't kill us? Should we try to get this done? And it comes down to one guy's major vote. I'm not going to explain the whole political situation behind this, but one general basically has the turning vote, and he votes for let's attack them. So the Athenians basically march up towards the Persians, who were, by the way, unprepared. They're still getting off their boats, and most importantly, they do not have their infamous cavalry off their boats. Those horses are mostly still on the ships. You have basically a lot of infantry out. Now, as far as the infantry goes, they still got anyways, I think Herodotus said something like 17,000, maybe more troops that were ready to go. But through the course of the battle, they technically got around their 25 to 30,000 there, but there's still some guys on the boats. Anyways, the numbers, I'm shaky on the numbers there. You can look it up if you'd like to. But the Athenians are essentially looking at being outnumbered anywhere from at least 2 to 1 to as high as 4 to 1 odds on this battlefield. And the thing that one thing that we haven't talked, at least I talked about it in class, but I don't talk about here in the video, or I haven't talked about in the video, is the phalanx style of fighting that the Greeks are so used to. Heavily armored troops packed together, shoulder to shoulder, shields overlapping to just give you just solid bronze wall in front of you. And then you stack yourself rows deep. Now, usually you're stacked anywhere from 7 to upwards to 12 rows deep of men, where you're just this packed group of flesh and metal, and you just romp over the enemy. And a lot of times when the Greeks would go to war with each other, it's like a push-a-war. They come together, and whoever falls over first, well, they lose. They actually didn't have tons of casualties in that type of warfare. Like I said, their war seasons, were war seasons. Whereas okay, you won, you beat us this time, we'll get you next time. Yeah. So the Athenians line up like this, but they take a chance. We can't let these Persians outflank us. We need to try to outflank them. So they set up their troops in a way where they really elongate out their middle of their line, and they're only about 3, at least from the records, anywhere from only 3 to 5 rows deep. Not very deep for what you need a phalanx to be, to take a huge onrush of massive amounts of enemy soldiers coming at you, no matter how heavily armored they are or lightly armored they are. Hopefully you're looking at that little graphic I have at the bottom, but that little skinny line right there, again, 3 to 5 rows deep. But then they keep their outsides deep, 7 to 10 rows, I believe, of men, to where yes, that's an effective phalanx. And the plan is basically to have the Persians rush them, because that's what the Persians do. They would rush and try to break through the middle and just cause all mayhem in within the enemy. And that strategy really worked in the Middle East. But against these heavily armored troops, well, it's different. These are heavily armored troops. The Persians do rush the Athenians, and the Athenian line basically straight starts to bow up like this. Now, according to Herodotus, that was on purpose. The Athenians meant to do this. But whether it was meant to or not, well, your line's going to bow and you're getting hit with like 15,000 men up your center, and you only got 3 to 5 rows of men deep. Like, you're going to have to give ground. Whether planned or not, well, doesn't matter. It's what happened. At least so we're told what happened. But the Persians are so focused on just trying to break that middle line, they see it as such a weak thing that allows those two side flanking phalanxes to move in and hit them in their sides, essentially effectively surrounding the Persian army. And then you basically get a half moon shape of Greeks around the Persians, and the Persians just get slaughtered. Again, when it comes down to just the final results of this, before I get to the final results, like the Persians, they run for the beach, they start getting on their ships. There's stories about how the Athenians and Plataeans would go and try to grab the ships and pull them back by like the ropes or even the wood. They try to jump on the ships. A bunch of Greeks would die doing this, but they'd pull the ships back, they'd get on and just kill everybody on board. The Persians are just frantic to get away, and they get away. According to Herodotus, the Persians lose, I can't remember his number. It just, from the mind, a lot of guys. Just somewhere in the range of like 8,000, 10,000 guys the Persians lose. Whereas the Athenians lose something like 400 or 500 total. This huge resounding victory. Whether those are the actual numbers, by the way, not sure. Again, like I told you, the guy who we get this whole story from, Herodotus, we love the fact that he gives us a very detailed story, but we do question his numbers a bit. Or I shouldn't say we, but historians question his numbers a bit. But dang, it's a fun story to read. He is a great storyteller. I can't do it justice, basically, in just telling you the basics behind this. But with this Battle of Marathon, the Greeks have effectively won against the Persians and effectively have beaten the invincible army that has not essentially had a defeat for 100 years. This resounds across all the civilized world. And within Persia, after the Battle of Marathon, Darius spends the next 10 years of his life until his death putting down rebellions, because everybody thinks, well, if those losers up there, if those loser Greeks can do it up there, then why can't we rebel? So Egypt rebels, a bunch of different places rebel against the Persians, and Darius squashes them all, basically saying that was a fluke. I'm going to go back and get them. But he does die before he's able to come back. And his son is the one that actually comes back to essentially destroy Athens later. But I'm going to do that in the next video. The last thing I would like to talk about, though, is the famous story of Phidippides. I keep using the term marathon. If you're thinking about running, well, yes, there's a lot of running involved. So the story of Phidippides is this. He's basically this guy excellent runner. Marathon is approximately 26 miles away from Athens, and what goes on is when again, I'm shortchanging the story a little bit just to give you the short version of it. So there's a little bit differences in the real story versus what I'm giving you, but it still effectively works. When the Greeks get up to Marathon, they find the Persians unloading, and they have their little argument up there about if they're going to attack or not attack. And when they finally decide to attack, they send a message back to Athens by runner. It's the quickest way they could do it. And this runner is Phidippides. So he runs 26 miles as fast as he can to the city of Athens to say, this is what's happening. We've decided to fight, and it's going to happen in the morning. So then the city of Athens says, well, okay, if that's the decision, but you need to let the army know that if they lose, we're going to destroy the city so that the Persians don't have the pleasure of doing it themselves. We're going to get out of here and destroy our own city so they don't have the pleasure of doing it. So you need to go back and tell the army that if we don't hear from them by like a certain time tomorrow, like noon tomorrow or something like that, or I can't remember what the time is. We'll just go with noon. Again, you'll have to look this up to get the actual story. Or the actual timing on it, I should say, then we're just going to assume that you guys have lost, or 5 p.m., I don't know, just sometime tomorrow. You got to tell us. So Phidippides then runs back during the night, so 2 marathons in essentially one day, to tell the army, yes, we need to beat them, and if we do, we need to let them know as soon as possible so they don't burn down the city, because if we don't let them know, well, the city's going to burn down anyway, so no pressure. So, and then supposedly, Phidippides also fights in the Battle of Marathon that next morning. And then when they win, they're all exultant, like, this is awesome, we won. It was like, oh crap, someone needs to go tell the city of Athens that that we won. Don't burn it down. And so Phidippides, you think there was someone else to be able to do this, but Phidippides becomes the guy to run back. So 3 marathons in effectively like a day and a half time, supposedly, but holy cow. He runs back to Athens, and in the picture there it shows him like getting up to the Athenian aristocratic council and just saying, we won, and then he keels over dead. Whereas the actual story is, at least from Herodotus, is he gets to the outskirts of Athens, sees the first couple people there, raises his arms and yells Nike to as loud as he can, and then falls over dead, just from pure exhaustion. The people in the outskirts hear the term Nike, the god of victory, and they interpret that message correctly, and they go tell the Athenian council, like, we won, and Athens is saved. So that's the story of the marathon. The reason why we run today is, well, a couple of reasons. You can say technically the Kingdom of Great Britain started it first, or reinitiated first, with this idea of like, yeah, that's a cool thing to do. But the reason why we still run marathons today goes along with this whole underdog mentality that I keep touting with as the main theme of ancient Greece, why we look to them so much. This is an underdog mentality thing to do as a group as well as individually, which, again, is a very American thing to do, a very Western civ individualistic thing to do. If you run a marathon, you are a major underdog against this huge course that you're going up. I've never run a marathon. I don't want to. I don't think I've ever run more than 2 or 3 miles, and that destroyed me enough. So thinking about this, yeah, I have friends and family that run marathons. I mean, they train. It's just crazy how much you go into it, how much of an underdog mentality you need to go into a marathon. And it does kind of help keep that, how do I put that? That thought process, that character, that attitude, that go get 'em, you can do it, we can do this, we can be great type of attitude that you really want to see in any nation. Taking pride in yourself and those around you for doing something that is just seems impossible to do. Just like beating the Persians at the Battle of Marathon seemed impossible to do. So I'll leave you with that. We'll talk about King Xerxes, Darius' son, next time, which leads into things like Leonidas and the last stand of the 300 and the Battle of Thermopylae. We'll get into the Battle of Salamis and the Battle of Plataea. Again, it's going to be a few more videos until we're done with the Persian Wars, but this is a big thing in ancient world history. And with that, I'll see you guys later.